Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my final thoughts on this Sunday's main slate here on Draftkings. I'm going to be going into my favorite games to target. I'm not going to go through every single game, but I will go through a couple players. Most players are going to be kind of here and there. Almost every single game will be covered, but I am going to go more so in depth on the guys that I'm going to be targeting this Sunday. Before I get into this, though, make sure if you have any questions in your season-long leagues or if it's a DraftKings-related question, DFS, FanDuel, don't care, please leave it in the comments below. Let me know what your questions are. I'm happy to give you any advice I can. And then on your way down to the comment section, there's a little thumbs-up button. If you hit that, I really appreciate it. Make sure you leave a like on the video. But we're going to jump right into this. This week's Sunday, I said it on my first look. I love a lot of these matchups. Starting here at the quarterback position, I want to look more so at some of these games for you guys because I did go into some of my favorite plays in the first look, and most of them are still there. New Orleans and LA, I love both quarterbacks in that game. I think Drew Brees is a great tournament play on the road. I think that if we look over here at our ownership projections, Goff should be pretty highly owned. I mean, 7% at QB is not bad, but it is pretty high when you consider a tournament play. But for what I think Goff's upside is, I think that he could really make some noise. Drew Brees, 3% less, almost half is owned as Goff. I like Goff a lot this week, but I think Brees 500 more is or 300 more is a good tournament play. I do want to go ahead and go to my favorite play that is still there, Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen this week. Still do. I think he's just got slate breaking potential, especially if he connects with John Brown on a couple deep balls. And then my favorite tournament play of the slate, though, just somebody I think is going to be way, way too underowned. It says 4.5% as a projection. I'm surprised if he's more owned than Drew Brees is, honestly, especially more owned than Deshaun Watson is. But I think Ben Roethlisberger is a great tournament play this week. There's not a week in the season where he can't throw for over 303-plus touchdowns. At 5,800, I think he's a really good play to make. For me personally, I'm going to be looking for the Saints-Rams game. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on it. Everybody's on Kansas City, Oakland, apparently. I thought it was more of a tournament play in my first look. Once I've looked at my projected ownership, Patrick Mahomes is projected to be the highest owned quarterback. Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, top two at tight end, I believe. Yep, 21% projected for Kelce, 18% for Waller. Wide receiver Sammy Watkins is one of the highest owned wide receivers projected on the slate. Terrell Williams being the number one. Sammy Watkins down here at 15. I mean, if people want to stack that game, it's a safe cash play because honestly, you're probably going to make money on it. So I understand the idea there, but we're looking for these GPP takedowns right now, and I'm going to take Jared Goff today. I took him in my early look. I'm taking him today. You're going to see a lot of similar looks that I had in my first look at this Sunday. More importantly, though, here at running back, if Joe Mixon misses this game, I don't see myself fading Gio Bernard. I should have 50% exposure to Gio. I don't see him not performing. Maybe 30 or 40% because I think the move this week is to pay up at wide receiver, and I think Gio's only 5,300. For me, I'm honestly looking to go cheaper. We'll get into that here in a second. I do want to go over a couple of these games at running back, though. Arizona, Baltimore, not a fan of any of the running backs in that game. Could Mark Ingram do well? Yes, of course. Could Lamar Jackson also do well? Of course. Just not a big fan of that game. I don't think it's going to be over 50 points total. I don't think it'll be like what the Lions game was, especially with how weird that game was. San Fran, Cincinnati, I think, could actually shoot out quite a bit. In that game, we saw what John Ross did to Seattle last week, and we'll get into that here in a minute, but I don't think he repeats. I definitely just don't think he repeats. My favorite play in that game is actually going to be George Kittle. If we look at the ownership projections for Kittle this week, it's pretty low compared to where I think it should be, at only 12.6%. I know it looks like, he's the third most tight end. I get it. But when you're comparing Kelce and Waller at 21 and 18 to 12%, if George Kittle has that 100-yard, 2-touchdown game that he can, especially against Cincinnati, who's been absolutely deplorable against tight ends for the last couple of years, if he just goes nuts, that can win you tournaments left and right. One of my favorite low-owned tight ends though this week actually is going to be these two right here. Vance McDonald. I think he's still priced up a little bit from where I'd like him, especially after such a down week last week against Seattle. I could see, like I said, Big Ben having a huge week, and Vance is going to be a recipient of some of those targets. I think he has a big bounce back here, but more importantly, my favorite tight end for tournaments on this slate is Vernon Davis. Evan Ingram had a good week against Dallas, but Evan Ingram has been projected to have a good year this year. They said they were going to use him, and use him they did last week. It's not that Dallas is bad with covering tight ends. It's just with Jordan Reed out and Case Keenum at quarterback, I just like Vernon Davis is just more than I already did. I thought he was a good play after last week. I thought he was a little underlooked at last week because of all these other tight ends like Hawkinson and Andrews and just guys, Darren Waller, for example. All these guys just shine. These young bucks coming out and doing well. And I think Vernon Davis could have a strong week here against Dallas. I think we see something similar from Washington that we did last week. Dallas is a huge favorite. I don't know what the spread is right now. I don't think it's too big, but I think that in most people's minds, they're a big favorite. I think Washington can keep this game competitive. I think Case Keenum might be a little bit better than people are thinking. And then coming here to the running back still, though, at the Detroit-Los Angeles game, I'm staying away from this game almost entirely. I don't like the game. We saw what Marlon Mack did to the Chargers. As a Lions fan, I will not have a lot of Kerryon Johnson exposure. I'm not a believer right now in Kerryon. He was supposed to do great against that poor Arizona run D last week and did not. He didn't get his normal volume, and it's not even that he was splitting with C.J. Anderson. He was, and Detroit's got quite a committee there in the running back position, but he should have just chewed them. But Stafford was looking beautiful again. I think Patricia's trying to give Stafford a little second wind here in his career and get back to just doing what he does and chucking the ball. I don't like Keenan Allen in this game either at the wide receiver position, but focusing on the running backs, though, still, I do like Dalvin Cook here in the Minnesota-Green Bay game at 7,200. I think his volume is unarguable. You can't dislike Dalvin Cook. And then on the ownership projections at running back, he's not that high, not as high as I think he should be at 10%. I mean, Kirk Cousins threw the ball 10 times last week on the road in a divisional matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if Dalvin Cook crushed his price tag at 7,200, and then he's up to 78 next week. So I don't hate that play. Chris Thompson, by the way, expected to be very highly owned there in that Washington-Dallas game, rightfully so, with 10 targets at $3,900. I think that he is a pretty safe play, a good way to save money this week. But with Goff, I want to get more into this lineup that we're going to make today. A lot of my first looks are going to be there. I'm going to be targeting Brandon Cooks and Michael Thomas this week more than any other wide receivers. I want these two in my lineup. And then after those two, I want Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not a big pay-up at wide receiver type of guy generally, definitely in cash. But, I mean, this week, I love Brandon Cooks' matchup against New Orleans. I think he just crushes 6,300. I don't think Robert Woods has a good week on Marshawn Lattimore for the most part. I think Juju has a great matchup, as we already mentioned right here on the charts here. He's going on against Jamar Taylor. I think his rating is insane. I'm not going to be fading him very much. Tyler Boyd, though, I do also think for Cincinnati is a good play. I almost forgot to mention that against K'Wan Williams. I think that's a good play. Michael Thomas here, though, against Marcus Peters. Marcus Peters just gets exposed by Drew Brees, I feel like, every time they play. So those are pretty much my three core wide receivers. And then with Jared Goff at QB, I do want one more of his pass catchers, and that makes me want to take Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, obviously. But for the price tags, it makes me want to take Woods, even though he's going to have a tough matchup on Lattimore. Cooper Kupp is just going to be too highly owned, I think. I don't even know what the projection is for him yet. Cooper Kupp here at 8% owned. Cooks is projected to be higher owned than Kupp. I don't think that happens. And just talking in terms of the Millie Maker, and then Robert Woods is supposed to be the highest owned, which is mind blowing to me. If that comes to fruition, give me Cooper Kupp all day, every day. And then when it comes to defense, though, I'm paying all the way up for the Bears defense. I think the Bears defense is just going to chew Joe Flacco alive. This is a solid core here, I think, for tournaments. The running back position is where it's going to get a little funky because in running backs this week, I'm looking to take AP at 3,400 because I think he hits volume, or I'm sorry, hits value with the volume he's going to get. But I also like the game stack, like I said, for the Rams and Saints game, and I love Latavius Murray to vulture a touchdown or two on the goal line, just crushing through Aaron Donald while Alvin Kamara gets pulled out after getting 70 yards on the drive. And then this is where if Mixon is out, Gio Bernard is a lock, and this will be one of my favorite tournament lineups of the week. And if he is not, and we cannot play Gio, I love Matt Breida as a great tournament play with no Tevin Coleman. But if you're looking for a higher floor, I think James White's the best play in the range. I don't like leaving more than 400 or 500 on the table. I will not be playing Josh Jacobs anywhere at all this week. I do not like Josh Jacobs. I did not like Fournette last week against Kansas City. I will not play running backs that are playing against Kansas City. I don't care how bad their run defense is. I really just don't care. When you're up 3 touchdowns, you don't have to have a good run defense because the other team can't run the ball. And that's all I have to really say about that. And he's going to be the highest owned player on the slate probably. Maybe Terrell Williams will. Terrell Williams projected 26%. Josh Jacobs 30.3% projected. I'm not on board with Josh Jacobs this week. Just not. I would much rather take Gio if Mixon is out. Breida is a good tournament play, but for the sake of this lineup, I think James White's probably the safest play. I think early in the game, I think him and Antonio Brown are going to get a large market share of the Tom Brady targets. So I'm sure I'll have this lineup somewhere this week. I'm going to have plenty of others too. When it comes to games that I'm looking to stack, the Rams Saints is my number one for tournaments. For cash, I might not be having Cooks, but I will still have Thomas. I'll probably have Kamara in there. I might still have Cooks. I think it's a safe stack to make, but at the same time, I think it's a great tournament line. I think you just have to fit in the right guys around them in tournaments. I think in cash, though, I might not be paying up for this Bears defense. I would probably have to go with Darren Waller here at tight end. And then instead of Cooper Kupp, I would probably go Terrell Williams. And granted, like I said, this is for cash. I would probably get off the Bears defense here, get off Latavius, get off James White, go back to my defense, and I would probably pay for one of these middle-of-the-road defenses. I think the Bills' defense is actually pretty underpriced this week. $3,400 for a defense isn't cheap, but I think they should be up here at the $3,600, $3,800 range. I think the Pats' defense will be the highest owned. If you wanted to take them, I'm okay with it. And then, for your running backs, you got 5,500 average. I think you pay down at Chris Thompson with his ownership projection, and then you can afford to get to James Conner or Todd Gurley, which are both going to be low-owned running backs, but I think they both pay off their price tags this week. I think for this lineup and for cash, I would go Conner. I think this is a pretty safe cash lineup right here. I also think it's actually a pretty good tournament lineup because a lot of these guys are going to be lower owned than you think. And if you go kind of chalky with Waller, Williams, and Thompson, the rest of the guys at that low ownership, and the Pats D is pretty chalky, but the other guys are all low ownership, could pay off in some tournaments. But regardless, good luck to everybody this week. If I can do anything in terms of answering questions for season long or DFS, I will be here for that. Please leave your comment below. If you have an urgent question you need to answer it, if it's Saturday night at 11 o'clock, please tweet me. My Twitter will be in the description below at WalkerVelocics. And definitely tweet me. My DMs are open. Feel free to DM me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But before I let you go, make sure you do like the video. I really appreciate it if you do. And good luck on Sunday. And I can't wait to see how this lineup fares because I think it's going to do pretty well. All right. See y'all soon.